Welcome to
Hi,
welcome
everyone. Yeah, go ahead.
welcome. Just glad everybody could show up tonight for the oils of the Bible. There's always an important topic around Christmas season, so we wanted to take a few minutes to go through the oils of the Bible that we have identified. God gave us these healing oils of the Bible for our use and benefit as God's medicine to help us live an abundant life. The historical use of healing oils, if you think back to the Garden of Eden and all of the plants and fragrant flowers and food sources that were in that garden, just walking through that garden, brushing against a rose, you would have the aroma of the rose coming off on your hand. So you know that the ancients would have noticed this and utilized it in some form. The oils are discussed in ancient literature dating back thousands of years, with Rome known for its baths, territories of Greece for their perfumes, and anointing oils mentioned in the Bible. Largely, these were extracts with many writings indicating the use of olive oil because of the many benefits and pressing the oil out. They've even found some crude distillation methods that would be similar to our present day distillation systems. It's kind of neat that even back then they had some way to distill those oils. Should Christians use essential oils? In Genesis 1, 11, and 12, it talks about all of the plants and herbs and spices that were given to the Adam and Eve in the garden. So the essential oils are aromatic compounds found in those plants. Were there essential oils in the Bible? In the Bible, plants and spices were crushed and infused with oil. They're not called essential oils in the Bible, but they had oils that they used. So, what was the Old Testament oil? Shemen, which is mentioned in Proverbs 21:20, was olive oil. And olive oil had four main purposes: food, which we still use today; ointment, used to illuminate their lamps. So when the 10 brides had to go fill their lamps up, they were filling them with the olive oil, and it was used for soap. What was New Testament oil? Myrrh was a definition of myrrh is anointing oil. The roots for myrrh are more for I just have a
For
blank.
myrrh,
Myrrh.
myrrh.
I just had a blanked out.
That's okay.
And myrrhus, to spread out. And that's where we get our English word massage. So these oils were used for massage. And that comes from Matthew 14:3-9. So let's start looking at some of the oils that are listed. Now, I've split this first two apart. Some sources will combine the aloes and the sandalwood, and some sources say that they were two completely different oils. So I have chosen to list them as two separate oils. This is an example of an aloe tree. Aloe is not like we think of aloe today. It was sourced from trees. In Psalm 45, 7b through 8a, therefore God, your God, has anointed you with the oil of gladness. Beyond your companions, your robes are fragrant with myrrh and aloes and cassia. So if you want to know of an oil blend to make, right there would be one that you could make with your myrrh, aloes, and cassia. It'd be the oil of gladness. When the Bible refers to aloes, it's the aromatic extract or mash of a tree's heartwood used for healing and especially embalming. An old English borrowed the word, then applied it to the spiky plant we know today. What are some benefits of aloe? It's a stimulant, it's a cardiac tonic, and it could have some digestive wellness benefits. The other one that's combined with aloe sometimes, it was sandalwood. So if you didn't have aloes, you could use sandalwood in place of it. And you could think of it, they talked about the mash from the heartwood of the tree. So here's a sandalwood tree, and if they took the inside and mashed it up, that could be where the aloe came from. 1 Kings 10:12 said, the king used sandalwood for fine cabinetry in the temple of God and the palace complex, and for the making of harps and dulcimers for the musicians. Nothing like that shipment of sandalwood has been seen since. So it was obviously quite an expensive wood that we're using. They were making fine things out of it. The ancient uses of sandalwood were for embalming, for perfume, religious ceremonies, and building materials. And today we use sandalwood. We use it for an antidepressant, antiseptic benefits, anti-tumor benefits, calming, and sedative. So a lot of people just smelling any of the wood oils, it will calm them down and give them that relaxed feeling. Cassia. There's the cassia tree and the cassia bark. In Exodus 30:23-25, take the finest spices of liquid myrrh, 500 shekels, and of sweet-smelling cinnamon, half as much, that is 250, and 250 of aromatic cane, and 500 of cassia, according to the shekel of the sanctuary, and a hin of olive oil. And you shall make of these a sacred anointing oil blended by the perfumer, and it shall be a holy anointing oil. So that's our recipe for a holy anointing oil.
Question. What's a shekel?
That's a good question. I can't remember right offhand. It's a unit of measure.
Okay, because at first I thought it was like a unit of money, but you're right. When it says shekel of the sanctuary, it would make more sense to be like an inch or a foot or a yard or something like that. Is that what
it was an amount, a unit of measure.
Okay, thank you.
The inner bark of the cassia, with its fragrant and aromatic, was probably used in a powdered form. So they would take the bark off and scrape out the inner bark, the inner lining of that bark, to get the spices that they used. Some of the ancient benefits: was a domestic spice, was used for colds, diarrhea, rheumatism, kidney and reproductive complaints. Those are things that you wouldn't necessarily think that they would have been using for back then, but they had those same complaints that we have today. So some of the uses today would be for its calming aromatic properties, can be used in place of cinnamon when cooking, and it supports a healthy immune function and digestion. Now let's look at cinnamon, its partner in crime. I was interested in what the cinnamon tree looked like. And there's the bark that they use for the spice. In Revelation 18:11-13, this is talking about the merchants and how they were weeping and mourning because no one was buying their cargo anymore. The cargo of gold, silver, jewels, pearls, fine linen, purple cloth, silk, scarlet cloth, all kinds of scented wood, all kinds of ivory, all kinds of articles of costly wood, bronze, iron, and marble, cinnamon, spice, incense, myrrh, frankincense, wine, oil, fine flour, wheat, cattle, sheep, horses, and chariots, slaves, that is, human souls. So these oils, these different ones are used in both the Old Testament and the New Testament. So some of the ancient uses of cinnamon was part of the holy anointing oil. It was a perfume and it was a precious commodity. Potentially, it was used for a currency for trade. Some ways we use it today can be for bacterial infections, bites and stings, diabetes, viral infections, and some pancreatic support. And another wood that we're going to look at is cedar wood. Cedar woods are beautiful trees, aren't they? In Leviticus, it talks about using the cedar wood for somebody who was healed from leprosy. The priest would command them to take him who was to be cleaned 2 live clean birds and cedar wood and scarlet yarn and hyssop. And the priest shall command them to kill one of the birds in an earthenware vessel over fresh water. He shall take the live bird with cedar wood, scarlet yarn, and the hyssop, and dip them and the live bird in the blood of the bird that was killed over the fresh water, and he shall sprinkle it 7 times on him who is to be cleansed for leprous disease. So we can guess what it was used for. It's mentioned most commonly as a burned wood for ceremonial purposes. Cedar wood is associated with cleansing and purification. It was part of the ceremonial tool for cleansing for leprosy. It was also used in a perfume. It was a symbol of abundance and provision, a symbol of security and stability. It was a choice wood for building, trading, and currency, and it was mentioned by Solomon in his Proverbs and sacred writings. So it was also of a very used oil or used wood that was very expensive. How do we use it today? We soothe anxious feelings and regain focus and concentration. You can add it to the lower abdomen for infection support, for urinary tract, bladder, and vaginal infections, and can be used to deter insects. Coriander. I don't know how many of you knew that the cilantro and coriander came from the same plant. The cilantro is the leaves and the coriander is the seeds. In Numbers 11:7, now the manna was like coriander seed and its appearance like that of bdellium. Coriander is used for healing of cuts and wounds, protect from infection because of their antiseptic capabilities, and used as a flavoring for foods. Another one of our woody oils is cypress. In Isaiah 44:14, O Ephraim, what have I to do with idols? It is I who answer and look after you. I am like an evergreen cypress. From me comes your fruit. Cypress was a choice wood for building, trading, currency, a fragrant hardwood, and a symbol of security and stability. As you notice, most of your woody oils were used as hardwood and for symbol of security and stability, prosperity. And it was the choice wood for weaponry. And today we can use it. Some ways we can use it are for bone spurs, bursitis. It's often used for incontinence and to shrink varicose veins. Frankincense, which is known as the king of oils. And the frankincense tree is scarred and the oil drips out and it forms these resin blocks that they scrape off, and that's where your frankincense oil is distilled from. Again, in Exodus, it's 34 through 35. The Lord said to Moses, take sweet spices, stacte and onycha and galbanum, sweet spices with pure frankincense, of each shall there be an equal part, and make an incense, blended as by the perfumer, seasoned with salt, pure and holy. So this is the recipe for the biblical holy incense. And then we had the recipe for the holy anointing oil. Frankincense was used as part of ceremonial offerings, a holy ceremonial perfume, used as a fumigant, a perfume, a precious commodity and potential currency, and it was one of the gifts of the Magi to the Christ child. And instead of frankincense, that they actually probably mixed the frankincense that they were given with the oil and made an oil that they could rub over the entire body of the Christ child to protect him. Today, we can combine it with myrrh and apply to scars and stretch marks to reduce the appearance. For immune system and cellular health, apply to the bottom of the feet. For congestion, cough, and allergies, inhale and apply to diluted combined with peppermint and rosemary to the chest and throat. And for meditation, prayer, and focus, apply under the nose and the back of the neck or in a diffuser. Galbanum. And what does galbanum look like to you? It almost looks like those goldenrod weeds that come out in the fall that make you have allergies. In Exodus, it's again listed as one of the spices to make the incense oil. Galbanum is in the parsley family and has an earthy parsley-like smell that is emotionally grounding. It is resinous and would be mixed with oil and used as a wax to remove unwanted hair. So we had our first waxing all the way back in biblical times. Today, it can be used for an analgesic, anti-rheumatic, aids immune function, aids in circulation, and reduces intestinal spasms. Hyssop. In Exodus 12:22, it said, take a bunch of hyssop and dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and touch the lintel and the two doorposts with the blood that is in the basin. None of you shall go out of the door of his house until morning. And this is what they did when they had Passover. Hyssop is part of a ritual cleansing and ceremonial offerings. The fragrance of hyssop was considered to be spiritually purifying and an aid in cleansing oneself from sin, immortality, evil thoughts, and bad habits. A sponge that soaked up the sour wine was attached to a hyssop branch that was given to Jesus on the cross. And it's also mentioned in by Solomon in his Proverbs and sacred writings. Today, hyssop can be used as a cough suppressant, a decongestant and expectorant. It's used for circulation and to stimulate the gastrointestinal system. Myrrh. Myrrh again comes out in its resinous. It's very thick oil. Comes from a spiky tree. In Song of Solomon 5:5, I arose to open to my beloved, and my hands dipped with myrrh, my fingers with liquid myrrh on the handles of the bolt. Myrrh was a precious commodity and a potential currency. It was used in the anointing oil, and it was an ointment when it was mixed with frankincense, a perfume, an incense, mixed with edible spices to be eaten. It was one of the gifts of the Magi to the Christ child, mixed with wine and given to Jesus on the cross. And it was used in the burial preparations that Nicodemus used for Jesus in the tomb. Its historical uses, it was incense in religious rituals. It was used for embalming, as a cure for cancer, leprosy, and syphilis, mixed with coriander and honey to treat herpes. When mixed with frankincense, it has a synergistic effect of improving the other's microbial benefits. It's the only oil mandated by God to be in both the holy anointing oil and the holy incense. Today, we can use myrrh for a soothing and balancing effect when diffused on chapped and cracked skin. It's had very good properties for oral health. You can add a drop to your toothbrush when you're brushing your teeth and get the oral effects of the myrrh. It's used for dysentery and thyroid and immune health. Myrtle. In Zechariah 1:8, I saw in the night, and behold, a man riding on a red horse. He is standing among the myrtle trees in the glen, and behind him are red, sorrel, and white horses. Myrtle was a choice wood for building ceremonial booths. It was a symbol of provision, a symbol of protection, and it's said to be the meaning of Esther's Hebrew name, and she would likely have enjoyed it as a perfume in the king's palace. And if you don't have any myrtle, and a couple oils that are similar to myrtle are cypress and rosemary have some similar properties. Today's uses is normalizing hormonal imbalances of thyroid, hypothyroid, and ovaries, and soothing to the respiratory system. I'm gonna have a guess on this one. Oni Chacha. Again, it's in Exodus 30, 34 through 35 as part of the incense blend. It's only mentioned once in the Bible as a component of the holy anointing oil. And all of my studies, I could not find any other information about that oil. So it's probably a very rare oil that was probably no longer in existence. Spikenard. In Mark 14:3, while he was at Bethany in the house of Simon, the leper, as he was reclining at the table, a woman came with an alabaster flask of ointment of pure nard, very costly, and she broke the flask and poured it over his head. It was a royal fragrant aroma, a prized desired plant, a costly ointment perfume used to anoint Christ, one of the last oils received by Jesus before being arrested and going to the cross. And it's applied as a precious ointment in combination with myrrh. It was considered probably that it was used as a preparation oil when she applied it to Jesus because he knew he was going to the cross. And so that was in preparation for his journey to the cross. Today, it's used for allergies, migraine, cardiovascular support. It's relaxing, soothing, emotionally calming, and mood elevating. Here's a recipe for the daily anointing oil. 1 table of olive oil or carrier oil of choice, 2 drops of myrrh, 2 drops of cinnamon, 2 drops of wild orange, and 1 drop of frankincense, and put it in a roller bottle and apply it throughout your day for health and peace. I'll give you a moment to write that down if you want to get a copy of it.
I took a picture.
On the banks, on both sides of the river, there will grow all kinds of trees for food. Their leaves will not wither, nor their fruit fail, but they will bear fresh fruit every month because the water for them flows from the sanctuary. Their fruit will be for food, and their leaves for healing. So even in Ezekiel, it says that we're supposed to use their plants for healing. And that's what I have for you.
Thank you, Norley.
Getting back here.
I'm going to ask if anyone noticed some common characteristics that came up through all those oils.
There were quite a few common characteristics, whether they were used for the emotional support, whether they were used for currency, relaxing, soothing,
Calming,
right?
Expensive.
Very expensive.
Expensive. Only wealthy people could afford the wood. So they used it in, certain situations if it could be afforded to that particular person. So you just kept saying expensive. I mean, in my head, that's all these dollar signs are going off. So yeah, like almost every one of them were only for those who could afford it. And again, that's the wood, that's the raw material. But
right.
Even the oils or the spice version of them sounded like they could be traded, like you said, used as currency.
They would be, yes.
So that just speaks to me that there's some value here, whether it be 1,000 years ago or now. We use them as oils, essential oils, which they used like their own version of them. Like they made the mash, they were still getting the healing properties from the same thing we get the oils from now. So that was so interesting. So that, and when I was a kid and I heard the baby Jesus story, that's what I called the baby Jesus. I'm like, why did those kings bring frankincense and myrrh? Like, if it's just perfume, that was the, translation we got. And like, well, what the heck does that mean? Like, what, that's not worth anything. And it wasn't until I learned about essential oils that it's like, oh, it wasn't just perfume.
No, it was not perfume.
It was so much more valuable. It was valuable in terms of expensive. It was valuable for their health, physical health. It was valuable for mental and emotional support. So it made sense to me only after I learned about essential oils.
And it was all predestined to be used for the Christ child and for Christ when he was put in the tomb. It was to be used with him on the cross. So all of these steps when on his path journey to the cross, all these oils were destined to be used for that journey.
Interesting. I never really thought about that. What was the name of that? I jotted it down here, but I don't remember the name of it. There's a route through Europe and Asia that they like the spice route or whatever. What was that called? Anybody remember that?
I don't remember. I know what you're talking about.
But the traders
Came
would
from India. They would come from over around India and all the way to the Middle East, and it was all they were bringing a lot of the spices from India.
And now we know why, because they were expensive. People wanted them. They knew the value of them. Yeah, that's just every time I'm reminded of this, I'm like, oh man, yeah, this is it reminds me of the value of what's in this bottle,
And people talk about them being expensive, but are they really expensive? They were really expensive back then, but they were considered for all their properties and how they could help the people, and it was worth it to them to use them.
Right. Well, they were using them for their religious ceremonies, for their health practices. So there's a lot that we don't know that they were used for back then. I mean, you're just touching the tip of the iceberg here.
Right. And when they were using them for the incense properties, can you imagine in the temple when they were burning the incense, the aroma that was coming out and the properties of all those that came into the temple were receiving from that aroma.
Oh, that's a good point.
Oils burning.
Love all that. Yeah, lots in there for sure. And that's interesting that you talked about olive oil as an ointment, a lamp, fuel for their lamps, soap, like that. I mean, that gives a value to olive oil as well,
Well, it gives a value to olive oil, but it also you think of it being used in the Old Testament, but in the New Testament they changed over to myrrh. Myrrh had such a impact both in the Old and the New Testament of how valuable it was. We think that frankincense is the most valuable oil, but myrrh had a role in so much of the history throughout the Bible, and it was kind of eye-opening to me when I started looking at how much myrrh was used.
Yeah, you're so right. We tend to focus on frankincense, but myrrh was right there, or even more common and more useful than. Because like I said, they drank it. It was used as and I'm really pulling from my memory here. Like I was going to say like a preservative or something. Like to preserve their drinks. It was for many, many, many useful purposes. And so I know I don't use myrrh enough.
I've been using it every day, and it's super sticky.
It's super sticky.
It's a real thick oil. And
very hard to get out of the bottle.
Yes.
Wait for it to drip out slowly.
Well, they say that you can actually pop the top off and mix it with just a little bit of carrier oil.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Shake it up, and it loosens it up a little bit.
That's a really good idea. I have a bottle sitting on my kitchen counter. I could not get the lid off. So I know once I get it off, you can take some carrier oil and kind of rub it around the lid and the top of the bottle, and that'll loosen it up. But I need to get it off first before I can do that. But I like the idea of mixing a little bit right in the essential oil bottle. So thank you for that. I'll have to do that. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? This has been really, really interesting. So thank you, Norley.
One of the books that I got when I was, or saw when I was out at the convention, it's one of the guys that now works for doTERRA, but it has so many interesting facts about all the oils and a lot more in depth than some of the other resources that we have. And because that's his job, he's studied oils for years, and so it was very interesting reading through here and getting some information from him on what these oils were used for and how they were used. So,
yeah, there's a lot of research out there, and doTERRA is really pushing that for even more of that because they know the power of these and they just want the whole world to know. And the world likes research and data and information and, things to prove things to us. So I think that's a path that doTERRA is following.
that's why this book was so interesting, because there is so much evidence on different studies in there, and
and you see how thick it is.
It's thick. It's a big book. It's not a simple one, and he's got lots of information in the back with his things that he used or his cross references for his studies. So,
who wrote that?
Scott Johnson.
Oh, okay. Who, like you said, works for doTERRA now.
He works for doTERRA now.
So wow, that's cool.
Bringing all this, he has years and years of essential oil study experience, and he's now bringing it to doTERRA so that we have access to that now too.
Yeah, we have his brain adding into the mix as well. Yeah, every time I go to convention and hear those chemists, doctors, researchers, I mean, I've sat in on lectures about constituents and chemistry balance. It's like mind blowing. It is. They know down to the molecule what is going on in those oils. It's really very, very impressive, the knowledge they've amassed on that. And that one book is just one little sliver of it. Yeah, it's really, if everybody understood even a fraction of what we understand, because we only understand a fraction of it,
right?
Everybody would be using these things without any doubt, so.
Well, it's funny because I'm seeing more and more people talking about trying to find natural alternatives to pharmaceuticals. And pharmaceuticals have their place. I'm not diminishing that. They do have their place. But there are also places for treating yourself and not getting to the point where you need the pharmaceuticals until way down the road. And so I'm just very interested in seeing. We ran into a guy at the gym the other day, and he was talking about he was going to a wellness doctor, and the doctor had told him to use some natural things for his breathing condition. And I thought, so there is a whole lot of that starting to change a little bit.
Yeah, I think people, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just saying people are getting tired of the side effects of prescriptions and over-the-counter meds, and they're taking charge of their own health.
It's becoming a sick care system instead of a healthcare system. Yeah. They want to keep you in that system and keep buying the pharmaceuticals, so they keep pushing them, and they've got the doctors and their kickbacks to the doctors, so they get that. And but it's just interesting to see that even in biblical times we were given the tools to take care of our own health, and we need to practice that a little bit
and get back around to that. That's basically what we're doing. We're coming back around to information and ways of doing things that we have put on the back burner. So thank you for bringing it to the forefront for us, Norley. We appreciate that.
It
Okay,
was
my
very,
friends.
very interesting to research, that's for sure.
That's cool. Just a promotion. We have an upcoming virtual event on December 5th. We have to, if anybody wants in on it, it has to be before the weekend is over with, which is, what is the date? November
24th.
24th, so that we can make sure your special event package is in the mail and arrives at your doorstep in time for that event. We're just calling it as a spa event. It's just a quick reference, but it's a virtual event. We have a theme. It runs about an hour and a half, and we're going to do it like this on Zoom from the comfort of your own home. And yeah,
In your
it's
in your PJs.
in your PJs, and we don't care. We have no judgment whatsoever. So there is a $20 cost for that because of, several things. One being we're shipping out items that everybody can enjoy and use during that event. So if you're interested in that, you can get a hold of Nora Lee or me, depending on who's watching this recording. So we'd love to have you there. It's 7:00 Eastern time on Thursday, December 5th. Anything else you want to throw out there, Nora Lee?
I don't think so.
Oh yeah, quickly, we both do essential emotions, a modality called essential emotions freedom technique. It goes by a couple different names. We help people go through the process of unsticking some emotions that might be stuck through the help of essential oils. And it's a beautiful process, and it's gentle and it's friendly and it's powerful. So want to throw that out there as well. We're both certified coaches. We would love to help anybody through some emotional baggage that maybe they've been carrying around way too long. Okay, my friends, I think we are going to call this a wrap.
Right. Thanks, Norley. That was good.
You're welcome.
Thanks for being here, Deb.
All right.
Okay, everybody have a great Thanksgiving if you're seeing this before Thanksgiving.
Yeah. You too. Have a good
You
one.
too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.